welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where we dive into the latest trends, ideas, innovations, and some human stories from the worlds of technology and business. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I've got a returning guest who is a man of many talents. From football to fencing to Formula One, and even earning himself the title of Entrepreneur of the Year. But he's also the master in the realm of cybersecurity, and since we last spoke, he's successfully sold his company Cygilant to SilverSky and is now serving as their Chief Strategy Officer. But in his spare time, he's also kickstarted a new venture with his son-in-law, which is a thrilling new platform called Let's Go Racing that is connecting global brands to the electrifying world of Formula One. But how do all those dots connect? Well, buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Boston, Massachusetts, where, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show, Mr. Rob Scott. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. For anyone that missed our previous conversation, can you just remind everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Great to be with you, as always. It's been about 3 years since we last talked. I'm now 9-time CEO in startups. I've done 5 startups and 4 turnarounds, all in tech. The last few have been in cybersecurity. And I sold the company Cygilant in 2021, December, to a company called SilverSky. And SilverSky is a much larger company. And we're in the MSSP space. We're specifically using some of our own technology and other people's technology, so we're very agnostic. So the position is Chief Strategy Officer, which includes M&A, Corp Dev, Biz Dev, and strategic alliances. And it's a great landing for me. It's perfect with all my skill set.
And it feels like so much has changed since our last conversation. We had a small matter of a global pandemic. Sigilant's been acquired by SilverSky. So can you tell me a little bit more about the journey you've been on since we last spoke?
Sure. I think, as you hit it right out of the park, we had a major issue with the pandemic. And I think we've changed a lot of things in our lives about the way we operate, I suppose, both in our own family life and also in business life. And I think there's so much consolidation happening in the cyber business during that period. And I think the key thing there is a lot of companies have come to the fore with technology. And obviously there's been major issues with skill gaps. The gaps in the industry are just so difficult to find really talented people. And when I did the Cygilant gig, one of the things we focused on was Belfast, of all places, because Belfast, it's about 39 to 40 cybersecurity companies embedded in their infrastructure. And their talent comes actually from 2 great universities, University of Ulster, University of Queen's. So if you go to either one of those universities and you're willing to do a 4-year, you can do a master's in cybersecurity. So there's a great input of talent coming out of those universities. And that's sort of fueled why Belfast has done so well. And we tapped into that because of Invest Northern Ireland. We were getting benefits from employing people. And I must admit, it was a great move for us.
And it's incredible that you mentioned that, because we've all experienced a huge market downturn, economic uncertainty, etc. So can you tell me a bit more about that about your cyber company's growth during such a period? Because it must have been incredibly challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what happened was, with everybody working from home, all of a sudden there's a different dynamic. So you're knowing to secure people from their own networks in their own homes and not in buildings that they were used to before. So I think that's a major dynamic in the marketplace. I think a second thing is that things like Zoom and Teams have taken off like we'd never expected. And I think that dynamic with bandwidth in the networks we've got needs to be handled the right way and secured. So I think a lot of companies have stemmed their business plans from what they were going through during the pandemic. What we did, we actually took on the roles of M&A. So we bought a company called Cyberx. And Cyberx, based in DC, was very close to DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. You can imagine it's all to do with MODOD. So what we bought them, and then we increased the number of footprints we had around the world in SOC operations, security operations centers. So we had the Belfast, then we got North Carolina and the Philippines, just to be able to cope with, as an MSP, the influx of issues that are growing. And that's not, I mean, during the pandemic, if you look at some of the numbers that are out there, just as ransomware as a business in 2021, the numbers I've seen recently was $7.5 trillion in ransomware business. And the rate by 2025, it's going to be $19 trillion. Now, that's not going to stop. And it's on a global basis. So there's all sorts of things we can do about that. Obviously, things like machine learning and endpoint detection and response, that's just going to grow. And the other one's XDR now. That's the new phrase in the marketplace. And I think that the influx of things like ChatGPT, we've got to be ready for that, because that's going to be the next wave. And how are you going to secure that? Yeah. So the small companies popped up recently that I've come across. One's a specific one in the UK called MyGuard. They encrypt ChatGPT. So I think that the world's our oyster in this situation now with that. And it was ironic. I was on a phone call this morning coming to this location. And one of the guys who's a CISO in a very large global company said, the phrase he heard the other day was that the next phase of instant response and ChatGPT is going to be as big as the internet. Yeah. And that's just frightening.
It really is. And if we go back to 2020, I think it was in a matter of months, Zoom became worth more than the world's 7 biggest airlines combined. So I think it was Primark saw their sales go from 650 million each month to 0. And then we go back this year. If we go back to November last year, got all the futurists predicting the big tech trends for what's going to dominate 2023. Nobody predicted generative AI. No one saw ChatGPT coming. And here it is. It's just transforming everything. So what big trends are you noticing this year?
I think the biggest trends now is adoption. And I think the people that are adopting this stuff, it's pretty frightening, actually. Yeah. One of the biggest fears I've got is, are people ready for it? Yeah. I mean, we've already had all these issues with ransomware, but are they really ready for this stuff? And obviously, what we try to do is train our people and try to educate any of our customers about what to open and what not to open. I'm talking about phishing and things like that. Yeah. It's scary that people just open things just willy-nilly and they're not aware of it. And I think that's the first one I'd be really concerned about. What we try to do is grow our strategic alliance partnerships as much as we can and help educate their resellers. So 2 really big ones we're involved in. One's the largest security provider of products across the whole of Europe and the US. And we're doing seminars and webinars with them to educate a lot of their resellers on how not to open certain documents. And that goes back to the lack of talent in the marketplace. I mean, most of our customer base is small to medium business. So it's small credit unions, it's hospitals that don't have CISOs and the likes of their staff that can look after things. So I think there's a lot of education going on. And I think what we try to do is use automation in a lot of our systems. So you don't need as many people, but it's a vicious circle.
And you mentioned phishing emails there, and I think we've all got used to identifying them because of the poor grammar, the poor use of the English language, etc. They're fairly easy to spot. But I guess now with ChatGPT, it becomes very easy for anyone to write a perfectly worded email and also have a quick look on LinkedIn, see the CEOs at a conference somewhere, get the domain name from the website, send the finance manager an email. It all looks perfect, the right branding and everything. It's much easier, isn't it?
It's very much easier. And I think that's the awareness we got to have in the marketplace, that's happening.
Yeah.
And let's hope there are products coming out, which I hope there are, that will help us get through this minefield.
And I'm curious, from what you're seeing and the conversations you're having, are today's organizations still playing catch-up, chasing alerts with a scarcity of experienced people, time and budget and busy firefighting? Is that still happening?
Yeah, I think it's happening a lot. And I think that's where the likes of our company and others like our company come into the fold, because we'll manage their network for them. And they don't have to be a specific type of product. We're very agnostic. We're global. We're 7x24. And we're not on our own. There's plenty of companies out there, but it's making sure people are aware of A, companies like ours, and B, the awareness of what they're doing in the marketplace, because it will come back and bite them otherwise.
And I suspect there's more than a few business leaders listening, shaking their head in agreement with everything that we're talking about here. So much of what we said will resonate with people universally. So what advice would you offer to a business leader concerned about everything that we're raising here today?
I think there's three sort of key areas. I think prioritize cybersecurity as a strategic imperative business to go to look at. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them think it's just like an insurance policy. Yeah, it happens. But the problem is when it happens, it's happened. Too late. So I think prioritizing that as a key mission and pillar inside a company is one. I think implementing a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy, just in case, that's very important. Make sure you've got up-to-date insurance to cover cybersecurity, because what we're finding now, lots of insurance companies are starting to shy away because they can't afford to secure everybody insurance-wise. Don't forget, the insurance company get the first phone call from the ransomware attackers. And then from there, you have to get negotiation skills. Companies come in like ours and negotiate those ransomware attacks. And then thirdly, then how do you fix it? So you got to have those strategic plans in and ready to go. And then the third one, I think, is, the one I mentioned earlier about stay vigilant and be involved. Don't shy away from this. Make sure you've got the right strategic people in the company that can deal with this. And again, train as much as possible, whenever possible, as part of your corporate strategy. And the things like that people have out there that not everybody uses, but, security controls, conduct penetration testing, threat hunting. These are all the things that make you much more less vulnerable.
And I'm going to go off at a slight tangent here, because when I know you were coming back on the podcast, I turned to Google to find out a little bit more about what you've been up to in the last 3 years since we spoke. And I read that you started a business with your son-in-law called Let's Go Racing, which exists to connect innovative global brands to the power of F1. Now, last time we spoke, you were telling me about you were a former Formula One driver. So maybe tell the listeners that missed that conversation about your past and about this adventure that you're going on now too.
It's been exciting, I must admit. If you go back when we last chatted 3 years ago, I mentioned that in the 70s, I had the fortunate position to become a test driver for Niki Lauda for the Formula One team. Yeah. From 77 through to 80. And then Porsche with Derek Bell and Jackie X for the Le Mans series. And then it was great. I mean, 5 years of doing that as a 18-plus-year-old, it was fantastic. And then the Suez Canal happened, and the difficulty of getting gasoline and oil from the Suez Canal, through the Suez Canal into Europe, and most racing stopped. In fact, all racing stopped. So spin forward now, nearly 40 years, I was approached by a good friend in Europe who said, "You used to be in Formula One. I'm going to join a Formula One team. And you've got tech background, and most of the companies we'd be looking for to get sponsorships are in the tech industry. Would you help us?" So I said, sure, absolutely. Never thought anything of it. And I reached out to about 7 CEOs in tech. And they all said, and big companies, we're already sponsoring people in Formula One. So, all right, okay, great. I went to the 8th. And the 8th one was a company called Cognizant. Yeah. It was a very large outsourcing company. And my buddy was the CEO. We both worked together at HP as peers in HP way back. And I said, "Brian, are you interested in this?" He said, "You caught me at the right time. We're just looking at sponsorships in general in sports." So spinning forward about 6 months, they sponsored Aston Martin's Formula One team. And as a thank you to me, they actually made me special ambassador to the team. So I go to a lot of the races. I guide as much as I can any influential issues and business issues that Cognizant get involved in with their customers into Formula One. And then since then, Kurt and I, about 9 months ago, said, "Why aren't we doing this? We should be doing this." So we started Let's Go Racing, and it's gone leaps and bounds. We now have several teams signed up with us, and it's been a real treat. Obviously, it's a part-time thing, but it gets you back from a business point of view back into Formula One. And just look at how many cars now have cybersecurity as a logo on those cars. But where we come at it from is a different experience. We're coming at it from a business point of view, not just putting a logo on a car. We're thinking about the strategic value that could be to a team. They maybe they use the product that we're pushing inside their technology suite. Maybe it's another strategic alliance we can help them with. It's just not putting a logo on a car. And that seems to resonate with a lot of the teams now. And if you think about it, next year, the year after, there's going to be more teams getting involved in Formula One. There's going to be 12 teams instead of 10. There's going to be more races in the US, and this show Drive to Survive has just exploded in the States. And a lot of technology companies have jumped on that bandwagon because they can see the vision that Formula One have had and how many eyes on screen on a Sunday. So if you think about it, there's about 1.3 billion eyes on TV globally on a Sunday. Never mind the Friday and the Saturday, but the Sunday. So that visibility to some technology companies could be very useful.
Incredibly cool what you're doing there. A great story behind it. Do you have any use cases that you can share about Let's Go Racing to bring what you're doing to life, and also just highlight what makes you a little bit different from other solutions out there?
We're different in lots of different ways. And I'll start off by saying, really, it's not about putting a sticker or logo on a car. What we're looking for is innovative global brands that can power motorsports. And broken down, that basically is what we bring to the party, the transition approach that will bring independent status to a team agnostic opportunity, i.e. meaning it's just not putting a sticker on a car. It's not making a brand like a tire brand different. It's really establishing a partnership with some of the teams that are out there and the sponsors, we believe, in technology that match a great return on investment for those companies. I think the key thing here is it's not just a short-term opportunity. It's a short-term gain with a long-term business strategy. And most of those are really geared towards companies that are not public yet. Some are public and some are not. And if you want to get the brand recognition on a global basis, there's nothing better than taking a company public. But how do you do that? How do you get that visibility of over 1 billion views on a Sunday afternoon globally? And Formula One does that for you. So that's really our approach to this. And we've been very successful to now in gaining access to great content, key goals with our customers, target audience, visibility now, because the US market's completely changed since Drive to Survive came out. The visibility for viewers of 1.55 billion global audience that we have now, and make sure it's an ideal fit for the right manufacturer. And don't forget, up to now, there's only been 10 manufacturers. Coming into next year, there's supposed to be 12. And let's see where that takes us. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing.
Oh, and it must be a real passion project for you too. And I love how it's almost like you manifested it. It's brought everything that you've been in your life, from the love of technology, the love of racing, and this opportunity lands. Is it a real passion project for you, something you really enjoy doing?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's the thing that gets me out of bed as well. I mean, technology does. And I've done that, as you know, I've done it for a long time.
Yeah,
I have a passion for growing businesses and bringing people along with me. But I think the key there is if you get out of bed and want to do it, whatever that is, and if you can join the dots between technology, cybersecurity, and F1, it's a dream.
And a question I've got to ask you, because you're someone that's continuously moving. So there seems to be a real pressure on every single one of us at the moment to be in a state of continuous learning, to keep up to speed with the latest tech trends like generative AI is a prime example. So I've got to ask, how or where do you self-educate to keep up to speed with these trends?
It's a great question. It's very hard because obviously you're on the move all the time. You're in front of leaders all the time in big companies. I think it's about having the right people around you that can help you with that. I could put on one hand the people that I reach out to mainly on a daily basis, asking questions about what's this and how is this going to affect my life? And a lot of it is actually my son-in-law, who he acts like my chief of staff, even though he's got about 3 jobs. And I think that's what we have to do. I think we've got to communicate as much as possible about technology. Keep up to date with, I've got a very close, I call it my personal board of directors. Yeah. Never mind the boards, I sit on 3 other boards. But in my personal board of directors, a lot of them are technologists. A lot of them are visionaries in the industry, from eBay, from Palo Alto Networks. But a lot of them are VCs. And the VC community obviously is well aware on startups and what's going on out in this industry. So I keep close with those guys and we meet regularly. In fact, the next meeting I have is actually going to be with one of them to talk about investments in AI that is going to combat some of the problems we're going to see in that technology going forward. So I think it's awareness, and I think it's making sure you communicate as much as you can with these people.
And of course, you've enjoyed a fantastic career, which has allowed you to follow your passions. And I think if any of us look back at our lives, you can only join the dots looking backwards. None of us are able to achieve success without a little help along the way. So I'm curious, Is there a particular person that you're grateful towards? Maybe they saw something in you early on, or someone that just helped you get you where you are. Is there anyone you'd like to send a little thank you into the universe today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you go back to when I was in my early career, when I played real football, for Man U in the reserve team, my inspiration came from my phys ed teacher then, and then from him, he went to fencing. And that's when I competed in the Olympics in the 70s. And it was him again that gave me the drive and passion to do it. And then the next one was when I went to Formula One. It was somebody else along the way. And I've been very, very humble about this whole situation because there's always been people along the way that I've stayed close with. One of them was a key guy that when I was in IBM and then Motorola was really my mentor in sales and sales management. He's no longer with us now. And then from there, as I said earlier, I learned to put this personal board of directors together. And they're from all walks of life. They can be a lawyer. They can be a bank manager. They can be the E&Y connection I had when I won the Entrepreneur of the Year program, 2002. The alumni from the E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year program is absolutely unbelievable. And the very first person that ever won it was Michael Dell.
Wow.
Then the second one was Richard Branson. And the third one was Bill Gates. And it goes on. So that alumni with 30 years has been absolutely fabulous. So if I lift my hat on, there's a lot of people along the way I want to say thank you to, but he still grows. And obviously I want to be mentors to other people as well.
Absolutely love it. It's a pleasure chatting to you as always. And for anyone listening, wanting to find out more about Let's Go Racing, about SilverSky, about anything we talked about today, connect with you or your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
I think a lot of it is on LinkedIn. It's all on there. My whole profile's on there. And then the other one obviously is SilverSky, rscott at silversky.com. And then Let's Go Racing.global as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll get links added to both of those so people can find you nice and easy. Man, there's got to be a book in you somewhere because I'd listen to your story there from Man United Reserves, fencing, the Olympics, Formula One, Entrepreneur of the Year, cybersecurity, technology. You are the very definition of a Renaissance man, my friend. So thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your story again. And let's not leave it 3 years till we chat.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's been really a pleasure as well, Neil. Thank you.
Man, just what an incredible journey it's been for Rob. From football fields to the racetracks, from cybersecurity to entrepreneurship, Rob Scott has truly showed us what it means to relentlessly pursue your passions and dreams, all while having your feet on the ground and being humble about it. So please remember to check out SilverSky for the best in cybersecurity, and if you're a Formula One enthusiast, be sure to visit letsgoracing.global for an exhilarating ride into the fast-paced world of F1 and technology. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about anything that we discussed today. So got any questions, any comments, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. Nice and easy to find there too. And for everyone listening, please take a note out of Rob's book. Stay curious, keep innovating, never stop learning. This has been another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where the world of technology and human creativity meet every single day. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, don't be a stranger.